Now that is the vibe. Nice and relaxed, safe, so we can speak our minds and connect freely. And it's no coincidence that to conspire means simply to breathe together. So with that message, I wish you all a beautiful panel.
Okay, so with that beautiful song, we can start with the last session of our day, role of digital technologies and data in the services of climate action. May I request Robin from ITU to moderate this session? You will be starting with welcome remarks.
Thank you very much. So for those who don't know me yet this week, which I think not that many, Thomas Lamanauskas, Deputy Secretary General of ITU. And indeed, I hope Jurgis will put us already in a good mood. We only asked him to do the closing, so he's all the bonus to kind of get us here already in this mood for the session. And I think it's a good end of the beginning, of this journey for this week, and it's only the start for all the action to come. So of course, we've been together since last Saturday, when it feels like 3 months ago, when we opened the Green Digital Action Track exactly in the same room. And where we said we're looking for the week full of commitments and action, and we delivered. So I'll mention some things on the closing how we delivered. But of course, today we still have a last session to go, and I think this focus is also on a super important topic on climate monitoring and using data for that. So, and of course for us as ITU, it's also a super important topic with our World Radio Conference happening just across the town, and where we agree on the use of spectrum for different technologies, including Earth observation. And we already had some decisions made, for example, of using spectrum for ice clouds. Don't tell me how that works. I think we have a better experts here, but and also the different sensors as well. So here today, we're very grateful that we also have WIPO joining us together with a number of organizations, and I think our colleagues from WIPO will also talk about their WIPO's Green Technology book, which was just launched at COP here, and that will lead us to then a discussion on the using of the collecting data, making it available for the climate monitoring and rising to this challenge. So with that, I'll pass the floor to our colleagues from WIPO, I think Peter Oxen and Shanar Tabrizi, and then I think Robin will moderate a panel from that. And then we'll have a bit of a closing with me and Jurgis as well. So please, colleagues here. I think, yeah, you can do that.
Is it on? No, okay, now. Okay, and thank you for the song, and thank you for the introduction. We're indeed happy and excited to be here today, and very honored to be kicking off this closing session on Green Digital Action. Also very happy to be able to present what we've been working on for the past 2 years at WIPO, the Green Technology book. And we believe that we're very much beyond the conversation on if digital technologies have a role to play for climate action, but more how we can enable their access to those who need it the most and build capacity on how to use them. And for us, it starts with knowledge. Often information on the various solutions, technological solutions are fragmented. That is why for the past 2 years, WIPO has been systematically identifying, documenting information on climate technologies, both for mitigation, adaptation, and many of them on digital solutions. But for those who are perhaps unfamiliar with WIPO, I'll just briefly mention that WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, we're based in Geneva, is one of the 15 specialized UN agencies. And it was established in 1967. We have 192 members. And the mission of WIPO is to lead the development of a balanced and effective international IP system. And it does this through 23 international treaties. Now, WIPO Green is part of WIPO. We don't deal very much with patents and IP. We deal with green technology, knowledge dissemination, and technology transfer. And it does this partly through the Green Technology book. So this is one of the ways. And this Green Technology book was launched for the first time at COP27 last year. We focused on adaptation, and this year the focus has been on mitigation. It was developed together with our partners, the UNFCCC Climate Technology Center and Network, and the Egyptian Academy for Scientific Research and Technology. And so far we have, we take a very broad look at what we mean by technology and climate technology, and it ranges from indigenous peoples' solutions and techniques to highly advanced technologies. Is this on? Yeah. And so the book is also linked to the WIPO Green database, which holds about 120,000 green technology patent descriptions, and also has expert profiles, as well as you can upload the climate technology needs that you have, so that you can be matched with the technology and technology providers in the book. And so we're very happy to see that so far we've had nearly 1 million unique visitors to the site, mainly from the Global South, who use this as inspiration for technologies. And also it's a living collection in the sense that it's not a static report. We can continue to add solutions. So if you are aware of interesting digital technologies, you're very welcome to add that. And so the Green Technology book, just to summarize, it offers a grounded and practical state of things on where we are on climate technology. And it's not only a catalog, but we also offer trends analysis for the various topics that we have covered. And last year we covered agriculture and forestry, water and coastal regions, and cities. While this year, with the focus on mitigation, we also looked at the hard-to-abate sectors, steel and cement, and that includes a chapter on Industry 4.0 and how the steel and cement sectors have adopted these technologies and to what extent. And so my colleague Peter is going to get more concrete and showcase a few of the digital solutions that we have mapped and sourced for the Green Technology book. Do you want the clicker? Do you want to stand here? Yeah.
Thank you, Shana. Yes, so it's all about technology, and that's why we want to show you some of the technologies in the book, and they are of relevance to what you're talking about today. They're all about satellites and how satellite image and data can be used in various fields. So this is one of the first ones, and they're all from the Green Technology book or from the database where it's all linked to. So management of pest in large forests is one area where satellite images can make a real difference. And here we have a company based in Hong Kong and Malaysia, they're called Spatian, who uses satellite images to make these monitoring maps of what's happening there on a commercial basis. We have another forest monitoring system here from Munich in Germany, which focuses on European forests. And what they are doing is the same. They make maps over European forests. This is an open access platform where you can then follow what happens to the forest in Europe in almost real time, I suppose. Then we have wildfire monitoring. So wildfire is also an area where satellite images can do a lot, because you can use, for example, AI-based technologies to identify satellite forest fires when they start very early, and then you can do something about it. And talking about doing something about it, this Albanian company here, it's actually not a company but a research institution, they actually are working on a solution where first they automatically identify forest fires, and then they will automatically launch drones that then can be used in various ways to fight the forest fire. I don't think this one exists yet. It's what we call a horizon technology. We have some of those in the book also. But it's a new way of thinking about it, and who knows if that's going to work. Pasture, livestock, again, using satellite images to monitor what goes on in the field, the quality of the pasture. Irrigation can be controlled through or be informed by satellite images. Here is an Israeli company. We have here a drought monitoring system from India, which again monitors all the factors that leads up to drought and thereby can give an early warning of what's going on there. Early warning systems, of course, you will learn more about it today, I think, but it's a very big area where satellite images comes in. We have here a company in Cameroon, which then takes some of that data and works on bringing it out into local communities through a local platform where they feed into another platform called Residat and try to use that in data that people can use in their local communities. We have here Latin America. It's actually from the United States, but it's active in Latin America, where you have monitoring of weather data for fishery communities so that they can be warned about storms coming up and thereby de-risking some of their work. We have crop monitoring here. So this is a Chilean company that uses various sorts of both in-field sensors and remote sensors also to understand better what is going on in their field and therefore be able to respond to this. This is part of this whole field of precision agriculture, which is very growing a lot at the moment and has a lot of promise to it. Again, this is a bit the same, a company that uses sensors and satellite data to generate economic and climate models. We have a farm management system again, which takes all these data together and put them into a platform that's readily available for farmers. And this one is a little bit similar. This is from Ukraine, but they're different in the way that they have 7 of their own satellites. So they actually produce a lot of satellite images for farmers on a pay-per basis all around the world. And then finally, there's this company here from Czechia, which is interesting in the way that they're already there, so a farmer can have a picture taken by a drone or a satellite image and have it analyzed by this company. And then they work together with another company that I met in Denmark, where they have made it basically a click-on solution to transfer that down into the machinery so that the precision sprayers then can use the data directly from satellite image in a very simple way. And simplicity is extremely important for this. So with that, I will stop here and leave the word to Robin.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Well, I hope you're all very excited still to speak about data and technologies before we go to the music piece. I would like to invite to the floor actually Peter again from WIPO, sorry. Then Lars Peter from WMO, Jana from the group on Earth observation, and Martin Frick from WFP, please. All right, thanks a lot for joining me here. I mean, many of you have joined us throughout the week, which is really fantastic to see so many familiar faces here. As you know, we've covered many different topics this week, but we had a very strong focus on the digital technologies need to get their own house in order. So really the inward-looking perspective so that we can really build on this solid foundation to speak really proudly about also the enablement factor. So before closing the Green Digital Action, we really wanted to focus on the data piece, the data enablement, on different use cases out there, specifically with ITU's World Radio Communications Conference happening at the moment, also in Dubai on the other side of town. So as a first question, I'd like to give the floor to Lars Peter, because leading up to COP28, through Green Digital Action, we were already in contact, because we did have first conversation about how can the digital tech industry support WMO in your role being responsible for climate and weather observation and international data exchange. So can you go a little bit into detail on what the role could be of digital tech helping out there?
Oh God. There are so many different ways in which we interface with your industry. You mentioned, I think Thomas mentioned at the start that we have had discussions for decades about the use of the radio frequency spectrum, and this is an area we have a keen interest in, and your industry has a keen interest in. What I want to focus on is something different. It's in a way somewhat low-tech and old school, but it is nonetheless very essential. In order to do weather prediction and in order to do climate monitoring, we need observations from the entire globe. Not because we are internationalists or because we humans say it, but because the atmosphere has decided that that's the way it is. We have tried, I'm a physicist by background, and we have tried our damnedest for many decades to see whether we could model or observe separate chunks of the atmosphere. If you could, for instance, just do a model here over the Arabian. You can't. It's back on. Digital technology. You can't. You have to monitor and observe the entire globe. Peter just told us about what you can do from satellites, and you can do many great things from satellites. However, in order to get this to work, you need observations on the ground as well, and you need them, unfortunately, pretty much everywhere on the globe. This is difficult. We have many observations where there's a lot of money being made. If you look at a density map of observations, it looks the same as a density map of GDP per square kilometer. A lot of money being made, many observations. So what do we do in developing countries? This is something that we and our partners in the World Bank and UNDP and others have been struggling with for decades. Your industry can help in very, very simple ways. I have been working with many developing countries to boost their observing system, and we typically run into one of the three, what I would call the tall poles. We either don't have power, or we don't have communication, or we don't have security, or we don't have any of the three, or two of the three. Who has that? Anybody? The cell phone tower operators. They all have that, because otherwise the mobile telephone networks don't work. And they work remarkably well in almost every single developing countries that I visited. So relatively quick win, and this would feed into both adaptation, mitigation, and early warnings for all, would be simply to instrument not maybe all the cell towers, but a suitable proportion of them with basic weather observations. Temperature, pressure, and wind speed. Wind speed isn't great, but temperature and pressure could absolutely be put on cell phone towers, and it would be a relatively quick win for us. The global community, the weather and climate monitoring community, it would require a little bit of innovative thinking, because it would require us to talk to ITU, it would require the weather services to talk to the cell phone tower operators. It is not technically immensely complicated. It is not even necessarily that expensive, but it requires the kinds of innovative partnerships that sometimes don't happen because the different parties don't speak to each other. If I could take just 1 minute more, there's something even more interesting. That's slightly more difficult in a way. When you talk about early warnings, an observing system that many Met services are extremely interested in is precipitation radars. They are difficult to get to work in developing countries. They will need to know how to calibrate them. They will need to know how to repair them, keep spare parts, pay the electricity bills, etc. We have tried and failed in many, many developing countries to get radar networks up and running. We know that signal-to-signal, tower-to-tower signal attenuation is at least in temperate latitudes, is a very good proxy for precipitation. There have been demonstrations made in the Netherlands, among others. They have a very good radar network. They have a dense network of rain gauges, and they have a dense network of cell phone towers. And you can actually generate synthetic radar maps from the signal, tower-to-tower signal attenuation that are functioning remarkably well. This would be a fantastic system to test out, to pilot in a number of developing countries, and we could do something relatively quickly together to get around a problem that has been really pesky for us, which is to get good radar data in developing countries. So those were just a couple of ideas. I think there are many more things we can do, but I wanted to throw those out there in front of this crowd here.
Thank you very much. And I mean, both these projects would fit very well to the aim of Green Digital Action, of bringing different actors together and like moving towards concrete solutions. So we've had first conversations already, and hopefully next year we can already come to COP with something very concrete on these two initiatives. So if anyone in the audience wants to step forward already after the session and start working on it, please let us know. But I'd like to move to you, Jana, because I know you have a very exciting project as well in the pipeline on bringing different actors together in collaboration for bridging the digital divide for climate action. Please tell us a bit more about that.
Thanks, Robin. I'm glad this is all working. If only apparently human ears could also be standardized, so all these things would just fit perfectly. Anyway, so the Group on Earth Observation, originally our mission when we started off was very simple, and that was to promote open and broad and open data sharing in the public sector, and then kind of trying to push that also into the private sector so that we could create that digital public good, which is open data, that is today powering all of the solutions that we talk about here at COP28. And in more recent years, we've also been working with the technology providers to bring access to cloud compute services and other advanced technologies to least developed countries and other underprivileged, underserved communities in an effort to bridge this information gap, because it takes data, it takes technology, but it really takes other ingredients as well to avail them to this digital transformation. I was just sharing a good news story in a previous event on how we're creating services that are leveraging open data, artificial intelligence, to bring a 15-day flood prediction model to communities. In this particular case, it was a case in Malawi, and then another case was on predicting loss of food production in Uganda, and in particular region of it was Karamoja region. And a person in the audience came up to me and he said, I'm actually from Karamoja region, and next to our region are the indigenous peoples, and guess what? They do not get the early warning services that our government puts out because they're off the grid, they're not connected. So the issue of actually being able to put in place an effective digital public infrastructure, data is great, technology is great, but the fundamentals, such as connectivity, such as security, these are the elements to this recipe that we have to rely on partners within the Green Digital Action Partnership.
And try to save money on their production, it would be there. And yes, it is being used. So about 70-something% of farmers are actually using some kind of precision farming already. But when you then think about, oh, this is self-driving tractors and drones and sprayer drones and all that, no, that's not really there yet. Actually, very, very few farmers use this. What they use is precision spraying. They use GPS-controlled tractors, for example, that can help them to avoid overlap when they spray. That's both good for the environment and it's good for the money back. So that's where a lot of it is coming in. Also, using satellite images, as I mentioned, is actually being used quite a lot because it's getting much easier to do. Like 2 years ago, there was only 18% of the farmers doing that, and a lot of them reported that it was too difficult to use, it was too complicated. Now it's 28% or something who is using this kind of data, and it's being used more now because it's easier to download directly to the machines. The machines are ready, they can do all this stuff. They have, individual sprayer nozzles that can be controlled through a computer. The recent machines that they bought, they all have that. But to get it to work with the satellite data and all that is a whole different layer. But there are companies that are making that simple, so it's basically just a matter of pushing a button, and then the farmers are willing to do it because the price is good. But drones and all that, not so much, and that's partly also because of regulations. You have to be in the field, you can't let it do it by itself, you can't cross a road, and all these kind of limitations that we don't hear about normally. So it's I'm a techno-optimist. I would love it to be much more. It's not that much yet, but it's definitely something that's coming. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Peter. I'd also like to involve the World Food Programme in this conversation because I know you're, of course, closely following what's happening in the agricultural field. So can you share with us your thoughts on data, digital technologies in agriculture, please?
Right. Can you hear me? Okay. Coming from a very, very different reality where, to start with, we have in the last 4 years seen the most dramatic increase in hunger since the end of Second World War. We have added 200 million people to the long line of those who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And that is a function not only of conflicts and of COVID and the aftermath of big inflation, but also of climate change. And if I'm looking ahead of the many things that we don't know, absurdly, the one thing that we absolutely know for certain is that climate change will be aggravating. Now, since about 10 years, people speak about the Anthropocene, meaning that human beings have become the most shaping factor of this planet, and I dare say not for the good of the planet. But it's staggering for me to see that in this precise 10 years, Earth observation possibilities have become so incredibly granular and powerful, and at the same time, our knowledge about the most basic thing that actually enables our existence has exploded. And I'm talking here about soils, because soil is the system that is the difference between Mars and Earth. And I don't want to join Mr. Musk going to Mars. I rather want to have Earth functioning. Now, I'm telling you all this because to me, the people we are dealing with are the large majority of those who are most food insecure. So you got the strange situation that smallholder farmers who are on the ground are actually hungry. And it's not only that they are hungry, they have actually 1 billion people out there who could help us fighting climate change, but it's not happening. And I want to focus on 2 technological solutions which I believe can really work for people. One is, if we are observing, if we have the ability to really granularly see what's happening on the land, we can do things that support smallholder farmers with much less transaction costs than before, or even with new models. Think about insurances. Insurances is something that typically is a privilege of rich countries and rich people, and it's not available for the poorest. However, one single event can undo years of development. And so we are trying to get more and more smallholder farmers into insurance, which is way too complicated with people who don't even have a birth certificate, leave alone a piece of identity. But we know where they are, and we know what the situation is, and we can see from a satellite if certain trigger points are reached or not, if the growth of crop is being jeopardized by a long drought, if a big flood is wiping out a whole harvest. And that can trigger insurance that can kick in and ensure that this failure of one cropping doesn't result in a catastrophe for the entire family, where in the end migration to a capital city with the hope to get a job there is the only possibility. A second thing I want to mention in our humanitarian work is that we are shifting more and more to anticipatory humanitarian aid, basically to support people before the damaging event is there. And that needs granular forecast, which is now available. An example, in Bangladesh, for example, we have areas that are often plagued by inundations. By now, we can predict 2 to 4 days before this is happening that it will be happening. We can inform people with an early warning system. They get a text message on their phone, but we can also transfer money ahead of time, and that makes a crucial difference because people can get their families to higher places to avoid loss of life. They can bring their cattle to higher places to ensure that they are not losing their livelihoods. And so the damaging event itself, of course, will be happening, but the damage done will be much less, and the recovery time is easier and faster. The last bit, and that's concluding with that, to me, it's the most important thing of all. We are coming closer that we can really granularly observe from satellites what's happening on the ground in terms of vegetation, but increasingly also in terms of soil organic carbon. This is the keystone. This is the keystone to give smallholder farmers worldwide the ability to sell a commodity on the global market that people actually want. And that's carbon sequestered in the ground. This is the indicator that decides about humanity's future, not less than that. So if we can get people with this technology really online so they can sell the carbon that they put in the ground, we have a big chunk of the solution, not only for the climate crisis, but we are basically mobilizing the bottom billion on this planet to be an army to fight climate change.
Perfect, thank you. Very, very exciting examples. Thank you very much. I'd specifically like to follow up on the second point you made on early warnings for all. Through Green Digital Action, we've spoken a lot about the Early Warnings for All initiative. For those that are not aware, it's an initiative that aims for every person on the earth to be to benefit from early warnings by 2027. So within Green Digital Action, we spoke a lot about Pillar 3, which ITU is leading on warnings and dissemination, and we've made really great progress with mobile operators coming forward to indicate that they will support the initiative through cell broadcast. We have a great progress from the satellite industry saying that they will collaborate on the whole direct-to-device issue, as well as like we've had a country come forward with a pledge of implementing cell broadcast. But of course, there's other pillars, and I know Jana, you are involved in Pillar 1. So I wanted to ask you a little bit, where does the data piece come in? What is the benefit of open data for early warnings for all?
Well, it's really fundamental. I think it's just the long and short of it. As Lars Peter started us off with, observations are just one of the pieces of the foundation, really. It's a cornerstone. If we speak about transformative scale initiatives, be it early warning or anything, it doesn't sound all that transformative, but in reality, the open data is it. We like to talk about artificial intelligence at this event. Artificial intelligence is only going to be improving, producing better results, trusted results, if it's trained with good quality data. The good quality data that is actually put in the public domain, and in other words, that is open. So to everything that we're discussing here, open data is an absolute cornerstone, and that also goes beyond Earth observation, but even asset level data. If we're talking about nature-based solutions and reducing biodiversity loss, sharing information about where things are and about the nature, the more data we put in the public domain, the better the services that we can produce will be. So I went on the long way to actually say it's absolutely foundational if we are to accomplish anything that we've set out to do under this Paris Agreement and other sustainability agendas.
Thank you very much. And you already pointed at Lars Peter. WMO is, of course, a key organization within the Early Warnings for All initiative. And you also mentioned before about the received signal level attenuation data for precipitation measurements, which could be key. But I just wanted to have your inputs as well on the whole Early Warnings for All digital technologies nexus.
No, I'd certainly like to add my voice also on open data. This is, as Jana says, this is absolutely key. So when I entered the field of meteorology, I'm a physicist, I'm not a weather forecaster, but I was a user of weather forecast at the time. This was late 1980s. I was racing sailboats in front of Copenhagen, where I lived at the time. And as a sailor, you follow weather forecast. You have to do that, but I can tell you there was no skill in it. There was no information value in it beyond 24 hours. This is some 35 years ago. Now we are used to plan our lives 7-10 days ahead based on weather forecast. And you could say, okay, so what? I need to know whether I need to bring an umbrella or not. This is not a life-changing event. But it is for many industries, and it is for many countries. Martin mentioned the fact that you don't have insurance in many countries. One of the reasons why you don't have that is that weather forecast and climate monitoring are not nearly as good in the tropics as they are here, because they don't have observations. It's illustrated very clearly in the IPCC's sixth assessment report. One of the big risk factors of climate change is the increased frequency of heavy precipitation. The IPCC cannot say anything about whether that risk is increasing or decreasing in most of Africa, because the data is not there. What does that mean? That means insurance companies can't model the risk, so your smallholder farmers cannot get insurance, and this is a major risk factor for them. Okay, so in the temperate latitudes where many of us live, weather forecasts have become incredibly good. They have become incredibly good thanks to open data. Open data is absolutely vital. I said in my opening statement that we need data everywhere on the globe. We need them, and the different centers that do this, the modeling for weather prediction and climate monitoring, need the same data, because only then can they compare results. And they can sort of gradually lift each other up to become better and better. And this is how meteorology has progressed in these last 35 years that I mentioned. There's a subtlety to it, because not only do you get better if you see the same observations, if you don't see the same observation, you are not going to agree on what is a good weather forecast and what is the bad weather forecast. So you will never be able to learn, because the observations are also used for forecast verification. It is also open data that has finally enabled us to, at least in most parts of the world, put to bed this debate on whether climate change is real or not. Open data has made it into reanalysis, which is something that you also use weather prediction models for. The reanalysis have shown unequivocally how much the globe is warming and exactly when and where it happens. So yes, open data, big fan of it. Nothing of what we are talking about here in this panel, or really nothing of the science that we are talking about here at this event in Dubai, would happen without open data.
Thanks a lot, Lars Peter. And Martin made the good point before that anything we do, we need to really make sure that it's benefiting those people on the ground. So I'd like to finish the last round of questions to all of you to understand a little bit how can we make sure that, you know, also through your expertise with the Green Technology Book, how can we make sure that we reach the local communities, that the local communities benefit from the technology and innovations.
Thank you, Robin. I can start on that one. So in the case of the work that we do for the Green Technology Book and also the database that we have behind it, it's relatively simple because it's an open access system. There's no cost in relation to using it. And basically everybody who has a solution can upload it to our database. If somebody has a need also looking for a specific solution, they can describe that need and also upload it to our database. And it will be automatically matched against everything we have in there. And once they have a match or they find something that are interesting, they can contact the technology owners directly. So there's an interface for doing that. They can also go directly to the web page, but it's really a matter of being that. And all that is completely free of use. It's all financed by WIPO, and we don't have any income streams or anything from it. So that's really, and that's why we are using the Green Technology Book also to get the message out there that technologies are there. They can be found, they can be identified, and there is room for them to get into the database also. One last point on that is that we are very important for us that the database that we have created with technologies that is inclusive. There are quite a number of technology databases out there, some going for the most investable, the most efficient, the most clean, and so on. And that's very fine, but we have chosen another approach because we have the understanding that really depending on the context you are, what works in, let's say, Geneva may not necessarily work in Burkina Faso and the other way around. So therefore, we are very open to all kinds of technologies that may not necessarily be the most efficient or the most fancy, and certainly not the most expensive, but it may be exactly what is needed in this specific context that we are there. So inclusivity is a key word for our database, and that's why we keep it open. Of course, we don't police very strictly what comes in. We of course have a look. If it looks crazy, you know, we take it down. But we are open to the broad diversity of innovation that is out there, and it is really diverse. And we want to show that diversity also in our work.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Martin, you had also mentioned, you know, 3 very, very good examples, and you also touched a little bit on, you know, that it's important that these reach the local communities, but there is still this disparity, I think, you know, behind the big tech world and the local rice farmer, for example, on the ground. So where do you see this, you know, what is needed to make the interlink better there?
Well, that's exactly the point. What we see is people who are hammered by climate change also do live in fragile contexts. They do live in areas where state structures are weak or not available, and yet we must not forget them. You know, it's an imperative for any UN organization to work on the basis of the Sustainable Development Goals, and leaving no one behind is what we pledge to do. But also we need to understand, and we have been seeing that over the last years, a staggering increase in instability. We see in the Sahel how one country after another is basically succumbing to extremism, and we need to ask ourselves how we can fix that. And I think there's a global interest, because in the end, it's about stability, it's about a rules-based system. And you know, in the world in which we are, we have a staggering number of countries that are actually still exist as containers, but are not fully able inside to guarantee the most basic human rights for their population. How to do it? It's highly transactional. You need to have people on the ground. You need to go there. You need to have also the ability to go there, the independence of a UN organization. But it's exactly there where I would say the future is built, and also where climate justice is being put in action if we start there. And you know, not only on the local level, but also on the global level, we simply can't afford to leave the people out.
Thank you very much. And this brings me to you, Jana, because I know you came here with a very nice slide on the community-based approach. So I'll put it up and invite you to speak a little bit about the community-based approach, please.
Yeah, I borrowed this slide from a talk I heard by a representative of the First Nation in Montreal at a biodiversity conference. You know, we spoke
Sorry,
about
Jana.
a lot. It's okay.
Can you put the slide up, please?
We've recognized the role of the satellites in these talks by fellow panels and myself. But one really area that we can and should be engaging a lot more with is citizen action. Participation of the citizens in collecting data. We call it citizen observations. Not only can that really help fill the gaps in data where we desperately need it, it also creates the whole of, it goes into the whole of society approach and creates the buy-in in the kinds of solutions that are then created with that data. And to that point goes this whole community-based approach. And the slide is here not for you to interrogate the different pieces of it. It's actually to show how messy that is, how complicated and convoluted it is. But we have to embrace and love this process. We started off with our troubadour talking about the people, the humans, and the human-centric approach. That's really what it is. As humans, we are complex. We love to say collaborate, but when we also like to protect our territory, we have to work through the conflict of the systems, our individualism and yet our love to be in a community environment, in order to achieve the truly transformational change, which begins not just abstractly with some satellites in space data technology, but really with the people's engagement with that and being part of that process. So that was really the purpose of it. We are a global village. If we downscale things to a village, we always see all the members of the village working together on their solutions. And if we are a global village, that's really what it's going to take. It's that kind of community-based engagement.
Thanks a lot. And that's a great lead over back to Thomas, and then afterwards to Jurgis to wrap up the whole Green Digital Action Track. Thank you very much to all the panelists.
So thank you very much, panelists, indeed. And we had a great last session for Green Digital Action to demonstrate not only how we need to bring everyone on board, including communities, for action, but also how we, what is an agenda going forward that we still need to work. Look, so it's indeed the end of this very journey of the COP28, but but it's of course not the end of the journey for Green Digital Action. And we came here, as I mentioned before, to achieve specific commitments. We came here to come together and demonstrate that the green digital industry can rise up to the challenge. So the digital industry can rise up to the challenge, and we delivered. We had 44 partners here together. We had 7 breakthrough panels, which demonstrated specific commitments. We had 19 partner sessions, and we had 9 key outcomes across 4 thematic pillars. And we are noticed, If you watch the world's press, I'm kind of receiving a warning. We are noticed as well what we're delivering here. Of course, I'm very grateful to all the partners, but I'm also especially grateful to the people who not only joined us for that, but joined in the leadership roles and committed to lead that initiative. Of course, Orange, here, Telefonica, FTTH Council Europe, Huawei, World Bank, our standardization partners, IEC and ISO, and of course a plethora of other people who really stepped up to the plate and say, we need to move this forward. In UN we always say that every UN meeting is a successful one. Whatever happens, we always declare the success. But I think, honestly, if I can say so myself, so Green Digital Action is really successful. We really, 6 months ago, we set up the targets which we'll achieve. We achieved this. But at the same time, it's just only the beginning. I really liked how in our standardization session, ISO president told us all, we'll be watching you. And I think that's also the message. The world will be watching us, whether we now deliver. We committed a lot, but we need to deliver. And to deliver, of course, we need an action. And then the action needs, from my view, 3 ingredients. It needs a right group of people together, and we have those right group of people. We also need a right plan of action, and we have right plan of action. But we also need one more ingredient. We need the motion to keep us persevering and move us forward when the times get tough. And with that, I don't know anyone else, and no one better than Jurgis Didžiulis. He's activist and performer, and one of the best-known performers in Lithuania, my own country, that can bring us that emotion. Please, Jurgis, over to you.
Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you so much, Thomas. All right. Jana after what Jana said, I have nothing more to add. All I can add to that is one thing is speaking to the mind, and another thing is allowing the heart to feel what it is we're talking about. So I would like to touch on that community is inherently messy. Now, it's true that there are certain actionable outcomes out there, right? There's targets we want to hit, there's things we want to do. If you agree, can we get an aho? Right. Now, another important part of this recipe is the people, correct? The stakeholders. Aho? All right. And we also spoke about data. I love that it was so data-driven. Data is important, right? Aho. See, we were not even sure on the protocols and the languages. Okay, but that's fine. Aho, right? Data. So I'm going to suggest we do one thing. Because if what we're doing is we're trying to model in the next 5 minutes a musical experience that kind of represents this dynamic, well, let's start from the data. Let's start from the data. So I'm going to ask you all to put your hands up if you're participating, so we know that you're all here, right? Good, we're all here. Very good. And let me ask you, how much time have you got for this? 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1, 10, 5, 2, 10, 5, 2, 5, 2, 5. All right, good. I'm going to do some really terrible mathematics and say we've got 6 minutes. Terrible mathematics. You may find my mathematics dodgy, but we have UN observers here as well, so at least they're verifiable. Very good. And the second thing I would like to ask is, what would you like from the next 6 minutes?
A melody.
You would like a melody. We can produce a melody. What else would we like? Melodies. We want melodies. What else do we want? Home? Hope. We want hope. We want hope. Good. Hope, melody. What else do we want? Action. Action, hope, and melody. Very good. So may I make a suggestion to all of you? Perhaps you would like to stand up. You're going to be standing up in 6 minutes anyways and leading out the door. Very good. And if we're talking about non-conventional solutions to problems and seeing how they emerge, knowing quite clearly we need to be very focused on the community-driven aspects, I would like to ask all hands involved to get in the air. That's right. That is the resource we're going to be leveraged. Can we hear them clapping? Can we hear them clapping? Yeah. Can we hear them clapping? Oh, oh, oh. Can we hear them clapping? Very, very, very lovely indeed. All hands on deck. Can we hear voices? Can we hear voices? Their messy voice. Can we hear voices? Let's create some coherence. Can we get an oh? Oh, that is so nice. Can we get an this are in place. Now, I would definitely think that because digital action is about connection, I'm going to ask you all to come closer to this space, to leave the roles and rules that we have come to understand is normal. People on the stage and people off the stage. Come closer. Everybody come closer. Thomas, is this okay? Will we get kicked in? Come closer, 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 closer. You wanted harmony, right? You want it right. Let's try again. Ayo, ayo, ayo. Oh, ayo, ayo. Oh, very good. Now, these actions have little result, but you know what? They feel good. I see you smiling. Actionable actions, no matter how pointless they may seem, make us feel like we're part of a tribe and a part of a community. So let's bring in the last part of this. I'm going to ask you a question which will become a song, which you will take with you after this meeting. It will be a souvenir. So when you see one another, you'll be able to remember. It's like, I remember that meeting where we were singing that song. All right. This is digital technology where we're both the RAM, we're both the hard drive, we're everything. You know? So the question is, how do we know? How do we know? How do we know that the seeds we're planting will grow? How do we know? Data monitoring, thank you. All right, if you believe in data monitoring, can we get it? Oh, that's how they'll grow. Oh, how do we know? Who else has a solution? You can do the snapping and we keep the vibes. How do we know? How do we know? You're asking, how do we know? How do we know? How do we know? What? What? We'll see. I'll give you 2 pieces to the answer, because people have said that soil is at the base of this climate action. But we need technology as well. But seeds are meant to grow, and we're meant to sow them and plant them. So I heard from a person, just sow a little bit more seeds and have faith and have trust. So if you have faith and trust in one another, and you can coordinate, as you were coordinating quite amazingly now, without any institutions, wow, perhaps there is a little bit of hope that we can do this together, despite not really knowing what we're doing. How do we know? How do we know? Ooh, how do we know? Ooh, how do we know that the seeds we're planting will grow, 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 grow. Sing. How do we know? How do we know? Better lives. How do we know that the seeds we're planting will grow? We just have to have faith, and we have to trust. And if we don't, if it doesn't work out, well, I'll tell you what, at least we had a good time doing it and doing our absolute best, like you have been doing your absolute best right now. So just to finish with a bang, we're just about at 6 minutes. Can we hear the clapping get loud? Da, da, da. Just the enthusiasm. How do we know? We know. How do we know? Let's close with it. Ayo, ayo. That's how we know. That's how we know. Ayo, ayo. That's how we know. That's how we know. That's how we know. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to Masamba as well. Have a beautiful evening.